that I kind of picked up on, and actually I've seen this on Twitter quite a bit, is that decoloniality and so even anti-racist education is ideological, whereas current education is not. And I think this is an important myth to kind of unpack, because in fact I think that idea misunderstands what ideology is. And this goes back to a quote that I found, and it's not on a slide, so I'll just read it out. But it's by Paulo Freire. I think it's from Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And Paulo Freire says education is politicity, right? So it is political. It is never neutral. When we try to be neutral, we support the dominant ideology. Not being neutral, education must either be liberating or domesticating. And so even so whenever we think of education and teaching English as a neutral activity, it isn't in fact neutral. In fact, it's still making decisions about including and excluding some. It's serving the interests and identities of some at the expense of others. And so there's still decisions about who makes it into a curriculum. And so like whose version of English do we teach? Whose texts, whose stories, where do those stories come from? And so decoloniality is ideological, but so is education as it stands now. What it is, decoloniality is asking us to shift our value systems in interesting ways. So, for example, coloniality tends to highly value sameness. And so this is the idea that, sameness, monoculturalism, monolingualism, and so that focus on the one, a canon or a standard variety of language, means that we're only ever seeing a small fragment of the kind of knowledge or experience or cultures or identities that are actually available in the world. Decoloniality is premised then on plurality. This idea that, there are multiple ways of being, and there are multiple ways of knowing and doing, and therefore education in itself should be an exploration of all these ways of doing things. Maybe this goes back to, Mélina, what you said about the connotation of decoloniality being about burning the books and starting again, like getting rid of what we're already doing. How do the emphasis on plurality actually nullifies that?
Yeah, I think we see that myth of being political is a bad thing or ideological. So things like promoting Black History Month is often, it's not done much in Scotland, and it's often people are often afraid of it because it seems to be too political. But actually, it's again that idea of saying with the status quo is just easy because you don't really see it. But whenever you try to move away from that, it's more visible, and it's maybe focusing more on this sort of differences that challenge the status quo, and that's where people get uncomfortable. And there's a lot of it's challenging those, again, common sense assumptions that come with coloniality. So I think it's really important to think about that. What it means to be political. Everything that we do is political, comes with political decisions, and this neutrality is actually not really what we think it is. Education is not neutral, so yeah, I see it a lot in education.